Few things are for sure in this life, but this is. If we live for any substantial amount of time, we will encounter grief due to the loss of a loved one. Not something any of us ever want, and we all handle it differently. This podcast is to feature those who have done purposeful and meaningful things through their grief. These people featured on here are normal folks, just like you and me, who were thrust into a place they never wanted to be in their lives. A painful place. As they moved through their pain, they realized that something worthwhile, something for the greater good, could come out of the unthinkable. I'm sure that none of them would ever consider themselves to be a hero, but when I searched the definition of the word hero, I found this: a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. And that fit. And so it's my privilege to bring you the remarkable stories of these heroes in grief. Hi, everyone. This is Tom, your host for the Heroes in Grief podcast, and the response has been incredible so far, and I want to thank you for that. It's getting out to people, and they're letting us know that it's helping them, and that is what it's all about. I want to make you aware of a way that you can support this podcast without having to spend 1 cent, and that is through affiliate marketing. I've set up affiliate marketing for online shopping. If you do online shopping, then I have links to all the major retailers, most of them anyways, and I can provide them for you so that when you buy online through those links, you'll help support the podcast through the percentages that we get. It doesn't cost you anything more. You just shop like you regularly would on the sites that you love. It's very easy. All you have to do is shop. And that's it. Just let me know the links to the places that you want to shop at, and I will provide the affiliate links so that you can do it. If you want more information on this, you can go to heroesandgrief.com. It takes you to the Linktree page where a video explains it in a little more detail. But you can always email me at tom@heroesandgrief.com, and I can answer questions for you. But you can support the podcast that way, and it's very easy, very simple, and it doesn't cost you a cent. Isn't that great? Thank you. Now here's today's episode. Welcome, everybody, to Heroes in Grief today. Thank you for watching and listening, whichever platform you're on. You can watch us on YouTube. I remind everybody that all the time. Or you can listen on the audio outlets. And if you would, when you get there, just like it, subscribe, whatever you can do on there, because that always helps more recognition for the podcast. And my heart for this podcast is that it gets out to as many people as it can. And I don't really do paid promotions or anything like that. So the more you do that kind of stuff, the better it is for the podcast and the more people can hear. And that's the greatest part. So today I have Pat Vlamis with me, and Pat is an artist and photographer. And she is also now a bereaved adult, but you were a bereaved child. And
Yes.
You've done some things, a beautiful book in that and everything. So we're going to talk about those kind of things and everything. But Pat, welcome to Heroes in Grief. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Where in the world are you?
I'm in Prospect, Connecticut.
All right. Yep. I'm in Niagara Falls, New York. So we're on the same side of the country there and
Yeah.
everything. So
I grew up in New Jersey,
yeah.
though, so I'm a Jersey girl at heart.
All right. So I didn't see a whole lot about your story, but I'd like to hear your story if you'd like to tell it. I think there's so much power in the stories, and so we try to get those out for people so that they can relate a little bit. Kind of what brought you into the grief space and why you're present in there. So how did that all transpire?
Well, it's a lot of things brought me to the grief space, but mainly I was 14 when my father passed away. I was 8 when he became disabled, and he was sick for about 2 months in the hospital. And I didn't get to see him then. And then he came home and he wasn't able to work anymore. So at that point, my mother went back to work, and I actually got to spend a lot of quality time with him in those years. And then when I was 14, he passed away. And, like a lot of people in my age group, there was not much resources at those days for kids with grief. Everything was quick. We went back to school. I went back to school, went right to school. Nothing was changed. No teachers, no counselors. No one said anything to me. I think one teacher came to the wake and it was no fault of anyone's own. My mother didn't know any different. She did the best we could. We talked about it. We were very open, but it wasn't acknowledged like it is today, and it wasn't something that we worked through or anyone talked about your feelings. It was just like, okay, move on, more or less. So I went to art school in New York City for photography. My father was a depression baby, and he never got to go to he didn't finish high school or go to college, but he was a great artist and musician, and so he could do anything like that. So that was my dream, to be an artist as well. So I became a photographer, and I went to School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, and I worked. After I graduated, I got an internship at Christie's Auction House, and I worked at the Metropolitan Museum of Art as a staff photographer for several years. And, it was my dream come true. I was an artist. I was with all these great works of art. And I would say all the time, I can't believe it. I wish my father was here to see this. He would be amazed at, what I was able to do. Mainly because I was able to go to college through veterans benefits from him in World War II. So that was another amazing thing that happened. So then I met my husband, and he lived in Connecticut, and I moved to Connecticut, and I would still work. I was still working in New York. And when I had my first daughter, I couldn't do that anymore. It was just too far of a commute. So I became a stay-at-home mom, and I was a stay-at-home mom for many years. But in the back of my mind, I always thought, gosh, I wish I could do something with art therapy and grieving kids. And, I looked into a lot of different things, but they just didn't work out for me at the time. But it was always in the back of my head. So when my kids started getting older, I started working part-time for some local churches and doing some social media work. And I started doing, social media work for nonprofits and churches. And about 2.5 years ago, right before I was turning 60, I just kept saying I was having a conversation with my daughter, and she's like, well, what do you really want to do, Mom? And I was like, well, I really want to work with grieving kids. And she Googled it, and we found out that there were these camps, the experience camps and all different things that are geared towards grieving kids. So I actually applied for a social media position that was at one of these, and it didn't work out. But I found out that there was a grief center right in the next town in Cheshire, Connecticut, called the Cove Center for Grieving Children, which I never heard of. But through all this, I found that out, and I started volunteering there. And I would take photos at events and fundraisers. And then they asked me to come to their week-long camp in May of 2024 was the first one I went to. And I spent the weekend photographing all the kids at the camp and all the activities and just the beautiful thing that happens in like 2 to 3 days and all the changes that happen for these kids during that time. And it was amazing. And, that's kind of what I want to keep working with. And I now actually do social media for the Cove part-time. And it's just great to give back and to work with to help these families. So at some point in early 2024, I began the Mel Robbins. She had a course, a 6-month course called The Launch. And I started the launch, and we had to have a project for our first 6-week session. And I kept thinking about it, and I saw these things actually on TikTok about making coloring books on Canva. So I actually work in Canva a lot, and I was like, okay, that's how the idea came about, to make this coloring book for grieving children. And I was able to complete it in my first session, and I self-published it on Amazon, and it's called My Memory Journal. And it's just kind of like a sweet way to kind of remember and to help kids like get their feelings out. I feel sometimes a lot of kids don't want to talk, or they don't want to verbalize anything, but it's easy for them to draw. So each section has a prompt and an idea and some things to color and some places to color your own things. And, I've gotten some great feedback from people who've used it actually in my own family. And a lot of my adult friends got them for themselves and they loved it. So I say it's for children, but it's for kids of all ages and kids like me. I say I'm a kid like them, I'm a grieving kid like them. So,
Yeah.
and all along it's been a healing process for me just to keep working to it. I also lost my brother 10, 12 years ago. So that was a different loss. And when my mother did pass away, my kids were like in middle school. And it was hard in that respect because I had my grief, but they had their grief because they were very close with her. So there's all different kinds of grief in my background and different things. And I kind of take all those pieces and try to put it together.
Mm.
So that's
I thought it
pretty
was
much it.
interesting that you said, oh, sorry. I thought it was interesting that you said it had always been in the back of my mind. So, not dealing with the grief necessarily when you were younger. So, different points in your life, did it come up where it's like, wow,
Well,
that's,
actually, yes. When it was in my late 20s, early 30s, I did actually go to therapy. Um, and I, was able to, and I went to a wonderful therapist who was able to um, walk me through dealing with it and writing letters and reading books and coming to terms with some of the loss of my father at a young age. Um, it's only now that I'm kind of thinking back on my, late teens, early 20s that, there were different issues that may have come up that, yeah, that's why, because I had unresolved grief, like
mm,
anger or, you know, just different things. And in relationships. And so I realized like a lot of those things that are left unresolved come up in different ways as you become an adult. I'm in a group on
yeah, they
Facebook
do.
called Adults Bereaved as Children. And a lot of the things people say are the same. It's like, all these things, residual things that happen along the way because of this unresolved grief as a child. So, I mean, I know kids today have a lot more resources, but not everyone. And I think that, if my husband and I always say, if one kid is helped by this coloring book, it's the best thing in the world for me. So if I could
Mhm.
help kids, help them process and move forward in a positive way, that maybe they won't have trouble down the line with it.
Yeah. Oh, and I love it. Thank you for bringing it up about the unresolved grief because it's brought up many times on this podcast. So where I encourage everyone to deal with their grief and find a way to do that, and all these different avenues are available for that. So that's what it's all about there.
Yeah.
The coloring book, we actually just had an exercise. I'm part of the Helping Fathers Heal group of parents who have lost children. We had a little get together in Phoenix in August. There was 34 of us there, and one of our brothers brought in coloring pages and crayons
Hmm.
and laid them down and said, "Color. We want to put them up on the walls. We want to do all this." And a bunch of men in there, but everybody did it. And for one thing, coloring is kind of a meditative thing. You're able to just do what you're doing and you're thinking while you're doing it and everything. And so you mentioned in the book where they could put their own things in there and that type of thing. So that's beautiful. And yeah, I think it can work for any age, right? Because I was going to ask, what age is the book for? And you say
Yeah.
children, but then you have adults doing it as well, right?
Yeah, I had my husband's cousin who lives in Greece actually ordered it, and she messaged me and she said, "I love it. I did the whole book." So I was so happy that
Wow.
she liked it. I mean, when I was in art school, it was maybe 3 or 4 years after my father had passed away, and all of my projects were geared towards him, family. All my personal photography projects were always geared towards family, tradition, my background because of him. And I think that helped me a lot at that point, and it's just,
Yeah, that was the impactful thing in your
that was
life
the
at that point,
impactful thing,
right?
right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I recently did another series of photographs about dried flowers, and I believe I sent you the link, but I could include it.
Yeah.
And it was all about, like, I've been obsessed with dried flowers and dying flowers for like several years now, and I had a ton of pictures of them. And I read a book by Rabbi Steve Leder about the beauty that remains, and it was all about his grief journey when his father died. And it clicked in my mind. It's like, the dried flowers represent that beauty that remains. Even though the person may be gone, there's still the beauty of your life together and your memories, and it's just transformed into something else beautiful if you
Mm.
take it that way.
Hello, friends. I just wanted to take a brief break here in the podcast to make you aware of a very exciting partnership that Heroes in Grief has just formed, and that is with Get Griefy Magazine. I'm going to let their founder and editor-in-chief, Kara Sanchez, tell you all about it.
Hey, Heroes in Grief listeners. Life after loss isn't easy, but it can be colorful and full of possibilities. Meet Get Griefy Magazine, a vibrant resource filled with inspiring stories of life after loss, expert advice, and voices from everyday grievers and thought leaders. Together, they're here to help guide you toward the side of life that's left to be lived fully and authentically. Dive into Get Griefy for free on issue or snag a print copy on Amazon. Connect with us on Instagram at Get Griefy Magazine or visit getgriefymagazine.com to explore, join our thriving small business collective, or discover advertising opportunities. Let's embrace life after loss, boldly and together.
And now back to our episode.
So
Yeah, I love the artist mind.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a musician as well, and so
Okay, so you know.
what is your dad's name?
My dad's name was Vito Mazza.
Uh, and what did he do in music? What was
Oh
his?
gosh, he was a fabulous singer, and he was the type that sing at every big Italian wedding and every family function. But he could pick up an instrument and play it. I think he brought a
Mm,
accordion home. I believe it was from Germany when he was in the war, and he would just take that thing out and just play it by ear. And later on in life, he got a like one of those organs with different keys that you could have different sounds, and he would play that
mm-hmm.
for hours. And then when he was home, when he was no longer able to work, he started painting more, and he would paint into the night and just paint pictures and drawings. And so yeah, he was we joke, he died in 1978, so that was a long time ago. And my sister and I say, oh my God, could you imagine if my father had a computer, what he would be doing? Like if he was
Yeah.
around during the computer age, he would just be enthralled by all the tools he could use. So
Yep.
yeah, that's
Mhm.
that's really what
We,
got me here.
yeah, we share. My dad passed when I was 10 in
Okay.
1972. Way
All
back
right.
when, yeah, very young as well, and so we talk about that a lot, and I agree with you. We just kind of moved on. I was the youngest of 7 kids. So, everybody just we just moved on and didn't deal. I never went to anything for my grief whatsoever. And it rose its head sometimes when I got older too.
Yeah,
I remember sitting at Christmas one time at a Christmas service. It was a midnight service, and it was years down the line, and all of a sudden, I just broke down crying, and, just out of nowhere, and it was because of my dad,
of course.
and,
Yeah,
maybe one other, instance when I was playing football in high school and I scored a touchdown, and it was like, my only touchdown, and so I remembered, it was impactful for me because my dad was very early. I was only 10 when he died, but he was the type. He was kind of crazy in the things that he did, and we had this large field in our front yard, 7 acres of land, and he was marking off a football field because I wanted to play football. So scoring that touchdown was something very
of course. Yeah.
meaningful and all of that and everything. So yeah, but yeah, it comes up at different times, and think about it that much or whatever, maybe, and just different things that maybe he would be part of or be proud of you for, and that type of stuff. You have a portfolio page. We're going to put the links that Pat has and everything in the show notes, of course. You have a portfolio page of your art, your photography, right, on there,
Yes. Yeah.
and different things. And there's a grief section on there, just
There's some
specifically for the
information
grief.
about my book on there as well, and about the flower photographs, but it also has my other portfolios of different projects I've done, personal projects over the years. And,
Hmm. Now, when you
I
do a
have,
portfolio like that, do you do it as a subject, like a subject matter, or is that how it's done? I mean, I didn't look at the pictures particularly. Are there descriptions in there of the
yes,
meaning,
the
or
descriptions of the
how does
different
that?
series I've done since I was in college and beyond, just different things that I've done over the years in my
Hmm.
photography. I'm doing more of that lately. I have ideas for a couple more books about grief and children. One of them is about leaving your home, the different types of grief. It's not just maybe a loss, maybe you have to move. So I'm actually working on that with my sister, who's a realtor. We kind of came up with the idea together, and she's done some of the writing for it. And I'm going to do the illustration. It's going to be a coloring book about moving from your childhood home. Another one is about tell me about your person, because I think sometimes kids, anyone, just want to talk, like say their name. That's another big movement now in the grief community I see.
Hmm.
And it's just like you just want to talk about. I remember when my mother died, I just felt a need to talk about her to everyone. And and it's going to be about that, and it's going to have all these different things that they could tell about their person that they lost.
Yeah, great. I They use coloring too. I'm an entertainer. I sing and play in nursing homes and care
Oh
centers
yeah.
almost every day. And so, they use a lot of that type of therapy in those places too.
Hmm.
Coloring and those type of things, and they're great for legacy, establishment and all of that. So, I wanted to ask you about satisfaction, or what happens in you when you accomplish these things. You do a portfolio, or you do the book or whatever. What happens inside of you?
Well, I think with the book, I would say, when someone gets back to me, when someone leaves a review, when it helps someone, when it touches someone, when it, like, I know what I feel when I'm doing it, but when someone else feels it, same thing with my photographs. When people tell me what my photographs mean to them, it really touches me. And that's the satisfaction I get, I
Mm,
guess, as an artist and as, a person who cares about helping others. Like, that's really what I want to focus on. And, yeah, that's the satisfaction. And then, like, when I first published the book, I showed it to some of the therapists at the Cove Center, and they loved it. And I felt so validated that, yeah, I'm doing something right. Like, all along in my mind, I knew I was doing something
wow.
right. But to have that validation from someone who's a professional working with children, it was very good. And they bought um, books for their whole family program, which was over 100. And a lot of the therapists tell me they used it, and they have a year-long family program, and they would meet, and they said they used it. Then one of my cousins is a teacher, and two of his students lost their mom. They were sisters, and he bought the book for them. And they were so excited, and they were looking through the book, and they were like, "Oh, we could write about mommy here, and we could do this here, and we could do that." And
Mm,
that, like, was like so touching to me, that I could help someone else. So that's really my
yeah.
main goal, is to help children, but all, just, I don't want to see kids go through what I went through. And I by no means had a bad life, but it was you know, just something that could be helped. Of course, you're always going to feel the loss. You're always going to miss that person. But if it could help you move forward in a positive and healing way, then I think that's where I might succeed.
Beautiful. These children's centers and things too. Just was speaking to someone recently too, and they got affiliated with that or had a resource for a camp that's done in the summer, and that's great. And then somehow it came up where someone got involved, or they were thinking about someone who was to get involved maybe in the winter time, and the camp isn't till the summer. And that I'll tell anybody out there, if you have these around you, there's opportunities for indoor things as
Yes.
well. Maybe do an indoor camp or something
Yes.
like that. And if you don't have them around you, then start one, do one. I mean, there's nothing to stop you from doing something like this in the area that you're in. I don't know how it is so much in other countries, but I know we do have it around here where I live. I know
Yeah.
that. And there's these camps and bereavement camps, grief camps, whatever you want to call them. But
Yeah.
they're
Well,
there
I've
to
done a
help
lot of
children who
research,
are.
and there's a lot more centers than you think. And they do have a lot of great family programs and year-round programs. And it's great. And a lot of these things, well, like most of them are free to the families, and they're all nonprofits that are run by
Mhm.
donations. So that's why my work I do, my social media work for the Cove, is to help them with getting their word out, and also help with fundraising and, you know, that aspect of it, because that's what allows it to be accessible to these families free of charge. And that's another component that I work with, and I like working with, to help raise the funds that are needed to keep these things going.
Mhm. Yeah, we have a incredible center here in Western New York that was just started last May, and it's the Western New York Compassion Connection,
Oh,
and it's exactly that. It's a building. They got a wonderful grant to have a beautiful building, and they have age specific rooms in there. Actually, there's more of a teen room with
wow.
games and things. There's a younger kids room. There's
Mhm.
an adult area. And so whole families can go there and get grief and bereavement care. It's amazing. There's other corporations in the area that have donated money to so that people from a little further out, maybe in Buffalo, because this is in the suburbs, that they can get transportation out there and everything. So, and they've really done a great job in establishing a lot of programs for different types of losses and everything else.
Yeah,
So,
and another
yeah,
great thing
there's
about
a.
all of these things is that the children are together with other kids who are going through similar things. And a lot of them
Mhm.
feel like, no one else knows, no one else understands. And I kind of feel that way with my own story. Like 2 years later, someone said, "Aren't you over that yet?" Like, people just don't get it. So and when they're in
Mhm.
these community groups with other kids, they know they've gone through it and they understand it, and that's also a great thing. Like this May at our camp, there was a group of boys, and I think none of them wanted to come, but then they came, and then they were thick as thieves in like 20 minutes, and they were together. They were doing all these great things the whole weekend, and it was great. And I'm sure they're still in touch. And some of the kids come back, and they keep in touch throughout the year with some of the kids. And so it's nice to build those friendships, however sad it is, just that they have the opportunity to have
Yeah,
friends
that's
who
the idea
understand.
with the. Yeah, that's the idea with the rooms and everything. Like, say you got some teens in a room and they're playing games, video games or
Mhm.
whatever. That's not all they do there.
Yeah.
They get those that camaraderie going and everything, and then there might be, and their attention spans are short, so you might have a little area or a little time when you just get together with them and you have a little discussion, about things, just so it can again foster that conversation amongst them and allow that to start coming out, like, hey, what did you think about that, man?
Yeah.
I mean, like, as they're playing their video game or whatever, or maybe it'll come up even later, but you just allow that to be. And but that's the idea behind having the things available for them so that they can be comfortable in that too. Yeah. So
Yeah, so that's
what's on your immediate future docket here? What do you got going?
well, I'm working on the house book with my sister right now. I'm starting my ideas for my other book. I'm working, part time. I'm actually trying to find another full-time job, so I've got a lot of little things in the fire right now. But yeah, I would love to work with more grief centers or grief communities or nonprofits. So that's pretty much what I'm doing right now. But yeah.
Great. Yeah, and you mentioned your visions for possible future things and everything,
Yeah,
so
so that's what
that's
I'm
great.
working on.
You got part of the Get Griefy collective that I'm part of, and
Yes.
with all those wonderful people there. What's your thoughts with that? Just the resources and brainstorming with people,
Yeah,
or
I
what's
think it's
your
great. I just joined a couple months ago. I've already had a few, conversations and meetings with different people and just learning their stories and my stories and how we may collaborate on a project together or just we're kind of working on something right now for Childhood Grief Awareness Day, which is November 20th. Um, so we kind of work on and I was part of another like group project for I think it was it suicide prevention? So I like the way everyone comes together and works together to either work on a project together, and all these other different grief professionals. I think it's a great collective of people, and everyone is so helpful, and we all have the same kind of purpose.
Yeah, I'll be total transparency here about it. That I mentioned Get Griefy on here. We have a spot in the podcast about Get Griefy magazine, and Kira, who runs Get Griefy magazine, came to me and asked if I would put that spot in there, and she allowed me to be part of the collective by doing that. So I'm very privileged to be part of the
Oh,
group of
that's
people
great.
there. For those who are wondering out there about the collective, what the collective part is, as Pat mentioned, was it's a bunch of professionals and entrepreneurs in the grief space. This is what they call it, pretty much.
Uh-huh.
Those who are working to help people in grief and loss, and there are. I call them rock stars, there's some amazing people in there, but they are also approachable and so willing to help. And so it's a great place to brainstorm. If you're one of those people out there, I'm going to start putting the link in the show notes as well, or you can contact me always to find out about it. I'll send you a link to it, and you can join. So there is a cost to join. I'll tell you that. I don't know exactly what it is because Kira and I did a trade, so I don't even know what it is. But it's something if you're a professional out there to look at, because yeah. So for instance, yeah, you talked about collaborating on something, and there's
Uh-huh.
something going out now to everybody about, is it National Grief Day coming up or something like that, where everybody's gonna just around the holidays here, where everyone's going to contribute in certain ways and collaborate in certain ways, so you all get together that way. And there's specific chat rooms for podcasters, for therapists, for speakers, for all different kinds of people. And so whatever you're doing in the space, there's somewhere for you in this, and you can find out about it. So um, um, I don't get any other kickbacks really.
Yeah.
Maybe some promo in the magazine, but
Yeah, and then
that's
like you
cool.
said, the magazine is also free to download if you want to read it online, or um, it's a wonderful, wonderful magazine with great stories and resources as well. Or you could purchase it if you wanted to through Amazon, which is another great resource. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
if you want hard copies of it, you can get it.
yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, there's another great commercial for you, Kira. I know she listens out there, so when she's not as busy as she's busy,
Yeah.
that's crazy. But yeah, incredible, Pat. So, what area? You said you're in Connecticut, right? So,
Yes.
you have that center you were talking about there for the kids. Do you find the grief help resources pretty readily available in your area?
Um, yes, now that I look for, yeah, I think so. I think even in schools now, there's more resources than there were, or there's more therapists who are aware of, maybe a child who's had a loss and helping them. Um, but yeah, and I know there's a few centers in Connecticut, and I know I've done a lot of research. I've contacted several about my book, so I know there are a lot of them in the whole Northeast, especially New Jersey. I've done some research. So I think there are more options available, and getting the word out. Like our center has 4 or 5 different programs all year round in different sections of Connecticut. We're not just in one location. So people in different
Yeah.
areas have that available. So yeah, I
And
think
really, this is information for people out there to seek it out, because there
yeah.
are these things available and they're no cost. These are nonprofits that are providing their services at no cost. Maybe you are part of an organization, a workforce, maybe a school, and these things can be done proactively too. I know that Western New York Compassion Connection, they have trained a slew of volunteers, and they were associated with the Dougie Center and all of that. So the training is legitimate, and so they train all these people, and then they're going into all these other areas to help in the grief situation.
Mhm.
You mentioned, a counselor or somebody like that. They may not have that training, but they can bring people in to help them understand it better, or just to talk about it in
Yeah, and
those
there's also a
places.
lot
So
of online resources like the Luna Network. I don't know if you're familiar with it. They have tons of resources
no.
on their website, So, and there's also a lot of online options that are available. So,
Hmm.
I mean, anyone I know who have had children involved in a loss, I try to always reach out and say, there are things available. How can I help you? I'll help you find something. Um, but yeah, I hope people take the time to see what's available to them if they are in that unfortunate position. Yeah,
Yeah, I prefer to be a resource person myself too.
yeah,
So I love all those resources. I'll definitely look up the Luna Network too.
yeah.
So
They actually put my
um,
book on one of their resources in their art section.
great,
Yeah,
that's
so I
awesome.
was I was I was proud of that one too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, awesome, Pat. Anything that
Yeah.
maybe we didn't cover that you'd like
No,
to talk
I
about?
think I think that's it. This was a great first podcast experience for me.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
You did fantastic. So don't
Okay,
worry
great.
about that. Yeah, yeah. Everybody, Pat Vlamis, and we will have all of her information in the show notes as usual. You can look for all the links there and everything, and look
And
at her beautiful work.
it's called My
I'm
Memory
sorry.
Journal, and it's available on
Mhm.
Amazon. So if you search it on Amazon, you can find it. It's also available in
Yes, and
Spanish.
there you go.
Yeah.
Now, what did you have to do that? Did they just do that
Um,
automatically for you?
no, I did a Google Translate for the words, and then I had a friend of mine who speaks Spanish go through and proofread it and make sure it was perfect, uh, you know, Spanish, and then I created it, put the words in Spanish, and then I downloaded it and
Great.
created it again.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, there's so many good ways of doing that nowadays. My
Yeah.
brother has approached me about, do I want to put this podcast out in different languages? And I
Oh,
can do that now if I want
yeah.
to.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. Let AI take care of it, right? But you
I
got to, like
guess.
you said, you got to have it proofread, because you never
Oh,
know.
definitely. I definitely wouldn't have just trusted that, but she checked the grammar and checked all the the spellings and everything. So that was really good.
Awesome. Oh,
Okay.
great. All right, Pat. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you getting a hold of me and coming on. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Keep up
Bye
the
now.
great work. Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Heroes in Grief podcast. If you'd like access to any of the links that we discussed in today's show, you can find them in the show notes. There's also a link there to support the podcast if you care to. And there is an email link for me there. I'd love to hear from you and your ideas about the show, or what you thought about the show. You really can help out this podcast to get to more people if you subscribe, rate, or review it in whichever way your platform provides. Each week, Heroes in Grief is released on Sunday, so look for new episodes there. Thank you again for listening to Heroes in Grief.